Welcome to the Journey of an Aesthete podcast, a comprehensive examination of all things aesthetic, the arts, the humanities, and what it means to be human.
Yeah, hello?
Hello, Tyler.
Hello? Mitch.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Excellent.
Dan has some tape over his camera, which is fine with me anyway, because I find the video thing a little awkward to...
Well, this is an audio show. We don't do video. There's no video.
Right.
I hope I made that clear. I don't want to... Okay. So, this is an audio show. Thus far on my podcast. I'm going to say a few words. This is Tyler Bejoian, correct?
Yes.
Tyler Bejoian, I'm really excited to have you on Journey of an Aesthete podcast. All the guests I've had on my show, whatever field they were in thus far, whatever field they were in or medium they did, always had many interests outside of their chosen field or the field they were known about. So they were very well, I guess you might say, not just educated, but kind of curious about the world. And so, for example, if they were a writer, they knew music or had things to say about music, or if they knew about film, they had things to say about ballet and dance. And I'm excited to have you on the show because you're the ideal guest in that sense. You have a lot of experience in many aspects of the arts, not just one aspect. But you are known most now for a rock band, correct?
Yes.
Called Tyler and the Names. And you have a new album out now on Bandcamp. And usually what I like to do is I like to talk about current things, but also older things. So I like to do what I call a linear chronology, just starting from the beginning of how you came to be the singer-songwriter you are, and how you grew in your artistic process. Or we could just talk about how I knew you in Boston in the old days, or whatever is important to you. Whatever comes up for you is what we'll go with it. So what did you want to discuss first? Because there's a lot we can go through.
Well, chronology is a tricky thing there because, you know, I started learning how to play music at a certain time, but, you know, things happen to you over the years that are kind of these isolated moments. And I think when we started to meet up and play music 4 or 5 years ago, that was a real fertile, interesting time. Mm-hmm. And I would be interested in talking about that first, you know?
Oh, you want to talk about that first? Okay, so, I'm trying to think I only knew the material you did at that time. I didn't know any, you have a lot of newer material. And I know you have your guitar there and everything. Did you want to do material from that period, or did you want to talk about...
Yeah. I'd actually like to play you some new songs I'm working on that will probably be on my upcoming record that hasn't been recorded yet, and I'd like to play some of those at some point.
Well, we can do both. I mean, there's not, you know, there's
yeah, we could.
You could do both. But I did. So you wanted to put a hold on the biography and do that later, right? You didn't want to.
Yeah, I mean, I would be definitely interested in talking about that, but. Whatever questions you want to throw my way, I'll be happy to answer.
Well, why don't we start with one of your numbers so people hear, because one of the things about you that I want to say at the outset is that you have a really your lyrics are quite complex and very funny, and they have a lot going on in them. You are a serious lyricist, and you write songs that are not. You know, they're not without interest and merit, and there's a lot of humor, and they're quite complex. So I thought maybe the audience would want to hear some of your writing skills in that sense and hear some of your lyrics, but it's up to you what you want to do first. So what are you going to sing?
Well, I'm going to go across the room here and grab my guitar. I'm actually at my friend Dan Sunshine's apartment.
Yeah, we should mention that. This is being recorded at the house of Dan Sunshine.
Dan Sunshine is standing next to me right now. He's about to head off to go to his job.
Dan, do you want to say hello? Because Dan is an old friend of mine from Boston, Dan Sunshine. How you doing?
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm groovy. How you doing, Mitch?
I'm always groovy. As you know, always. All right.
Yeah, it should be worth noting that that Dan has been to a majority of the gigs I've been playing in the last few months, and he has recorded them dutifully. So
On the album.
And he actually took the photograph, the album cover for my new album, Outskirts of the Gala.
The Outskirts of the Gala is beautiful album. We'll get to that. Yeah, I really like the cover too, a lot.
Yeah, we went out. Oh yeah, I can tell you later how the cover was shot, but I'd like to play a new song that I'm playing live with a band called "Take My Soul to the Junkyard."
That's a great title. This is what I like. That's truly Tyler in the names. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. A radar that's gone broke, a bike that's lost its spokes. These are the things that people just throw away. Refrigerator and a busted blind, things people just leave behind. But you can take my soul to the junkyard today. Over there stands Mr. Huey. You know his gloves, they're getting gooey with the refuse of a world that's passed on by. But if you see him on that truck, just offer him good luck, and you can take his soul to the junkyard today. Well, my baby left her little black leggings over on the Austin Bridge with the Miller High Life bottles that have all seemed to have lost their lids. Well, some things you can hold on to, other things they just fade away. And you can take my soul to the junkyard today. All the people, they're just running the other way. Take my soul to the junkyard.
Wow, Tyler, that's a beautiful song. I love that song. Your writing keeps getting better and better. That's a wow. In fact, listening to that made me want to kind of go back 5 years and get on the bandstand and do that right now.
Yeah, well, you know, Mitch, open invitation down here to Massachusetts to do some more recording, or maybe we'll have to come to North Carolina.
We'll have to figure something out. Yeah, it's a just the distance with the planes and the trains and the automobiles, the John Candy.
Oh, John Candy
kind of issues.
Doesn't he sell shower curtain rings in that movie?
He does. And that's one of the greatest things about that movie, is what he does for a living.
Del Griffith is his character's name.
Yeah.
But, that song I think would be a good fit for the radio show, because that's a subject you often talk about, is how these things, they get thrown into the junkyard. Yeah. And they lose kind of use value. They lose purpose.
Well, as you know, I'm not to wave a flag. I'm a big believer in repurposing and recycling of all kinds, and I don't like to throw things away. That's a problem. Yeah. So
if I can get one message across on the show, it's to always recycle. Anybody listening out there.
Yeah. Well, that applies to things other than just the merely physical, right?
Oh yeah. So, and a lot of my music comes from the fact that I listen to a lot of old records and stuff, and I am constantly inspired by music that was made a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can certainly hear a lot of influences. I know that you, like me, you were a fan of Harry Nilsson, correct?
Oh yeah.
And you love Bob Dylan, and also I think you like Chris Christopherson a lot, right? And
I saw him actually when he came into Boston a few years ago with my friend Danielle, who did the album art for our album Long Gone Carrier, which was, as a matter of fact, inspired by a Nilsson cover.
Oh wow!
Nilsson Sings Newman, which to me is one of the meeting of two great giants.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention Randy Newman, because Randy Newman's score to Marriage Story is fantastic, and I'm happy to see, Randy Newman is a genius. I don't really know. He's on my list of the greats. He's on there with Miles Davis and Charlie Parker and Art Tatum. It's crazy. I know, but he's really, I think he's kind of underrated as a lyricist and songwriter. I think in part because some of his projects are a little more conventional, or for conventional platforms like, say, Disney and Toy Story. And so people tend to just look at that and they don't. But actually, it's really hard to write a song like the kind of songs he writes for Toy Story. Like to write a very traditional song is hard to do. It takes great skill. So even if you just looked at that, like he would be like one of the great writers. It just so happens he writes all these incredible art songs, and everything. So it's kind of it's kind of.
I mean, he occupies a unique position because his family, his grandfather was one of the major soundtrack artists over at the picture studios back in the 30s.
Yep.
And he has that in his heritage and his blood. And when the 60s came along, he was just this dude writing songs for bands like the Fleetwoods, and all these songs got circulated. And then when he came out with his first record, no one really knew what to make of it. He had these songs about dancing bears and, and rednecks and Davy the Fat Boy and stuff like that. And the albums didn't sell, and they weren't expected to sell until he had that hit with Short People. So that was his big breakout.
Was his big breakout. That's an incredible album, though, Little Criminals.
Yeah, we've talked about that album before.
Yeah.
Just like it's really a rare thing where you have someone who can just capture these American characters in such an immediate way that's it's tinged with this emotionalism, but you're not really sure who to root for. They're kind of like these miniature cinema verite films or something.
Yeah. Well, he likes to do an unreliable narrator, I guess.
Exactly.
But he's not the only one that does that. Of course, other famous names in rock and folk, I guess, have done that. Well,
that's the thing, because people I think they tend to gravitate towards reliable narrators most of the time.
Yeah, that's true. Well, it's of course that opens a philosophic question over what a narrator is. What is it? What is a narrator? Is it so for me? It isn't so much whether a narrator is reliable or not. It's actually what is a narrator, what is a hero. I mean, I've often thought that works of art are here for us to understand things that we haven't directly experienced. So I think there's two functions of art that are kind of in tension with each other. So there's the function of art to try to express my actual experience, which is what's familiar and what's known, and that's very important. Actually, that's one function. But there's another function that's actually kind of almost opposite that, which is actually learn about something completely new. Yeah. And I think art can do one of those two. What I mean is that art kind of swerves, I think, between those two poles of unfamiliarity and familiarity. It's kind of like.
Yeah, and something great about a guy like Randy Newman's songs is that he can put you in a situation, in a place that you would never think to go, like it's like some parole officer's office, or in some, the room of this kid who kind of gets locked up like a freak, and he can make you feel for these characters you have never ordinarily considered. And
that's true.
That's something which is very inspiring for my own songwriting, of taking people to a place that's that they haven't been to or is unfamiliar, or the more times you listen to it or revisit something, the richer it becomes. Is really my ultimate goal there.
Yeah, I mean, you say the word name parole officer, I think, of course, of Straight Time.
Oh, yeah.
And I think of Emmett Walsh and Dustin Hoffman. Do you think there's a connection between like a movie like Straight Time some of the music that you like, or does it?
Oh yeah. I mean, as listeners of this show probably know, you have an affinity for cinema of the 1970s, and one thing I love about that, the imagery of a lot of the movies from that period is that they don't put on any airs. They're just, they really jump out at you in a way that is very appealing to me as a songwriter, because a lot of them take place in an America that, is almost kind of hidden now because so many years have passed. But it's kind of, this just the way, a shop window may have looked, or a place that wasn't really, given much a thought or attention to at the time, but just has this great kind of directness when looked at through the context of the movie. And, just when you look at a character like Dustin Hoffman's in that movie, it's important because it's the environment that he's walking around in. And any songwriter will tell you that experience and attention to one's environment, or the impact one's environment has on him or her, is incredibly significant. I mean, my friend Stacy just got back from Ireland, and she talked about walking around Cypress Avenue, where the street that Van Morrison walked on when he was a teenager.
Oh, wow. So you're a Van Morrison fan too.
Oh yeah.
We have that. Yeah. I love Van Morrison and think he's kind of underrated, actually. But that's a whole other. We can talk. That's a whole other discussion. But that brings me back 5 years ago. You and I did some shows together, right?
Yeah.
And we did some of your older material. But I guess, do you still do some of your older songs like Orange Van and
Oh yeah. I play those songs whenever I have a gig.
Did you want to do one of those from that first album that I was on, or did you?
Oh yeah, I'll do it.
What song comes to you? I mean, because some of your work is very lyrical, like Long Gone Carol has kind of a lyricism. It's very very poetic.
That one actually has a specific tuning that when I wrote a lot of those songs were in that guitar tuning.
Okay.
I think the Orange Van song would be good to do on this show because it just kind of I think it was written back when we were talking about a lot of stuff like that movie The Van about Chevy vans.
Yeah.
It just seems right that I do it.
Yeah, of course.
At Dan Sunshine's house too. But I can play that. Do you want to?
Well, sure. I mean, it's a favorite, but you can play anything you want to play.
I'll play that.
Yeah.
Well, I would trade any moment of darkness for a brief glimpse of light. I've been riding around your house all morning, and I'll stay there all night. But the moment that I get in, I will probably leave again. I'm a coward and a liar. I can't ever seem to win. Well, your old man, he busted down my door. He couldn't find me or my guitar. A sleeping bag was laying on the floor, and you bet he'll be tracking me down. You bet he'll be snooping around. You can scour the land, see me coming down in that van. The colors, bright orange and tan. It'll be going at the speed of light, and I'll be driving all night.
Yeah, you'll be driving all night. That's it. That's great.
Yeah, I mean,
of course, the van. Yeah,
it's significant. Dan added that I don't have a driver's license, so but it doesn't matter because the song is the vehicle in itself there, you know.
Right. Well, you saying you personally don't have a driver's license?
I personally have driven maybe 2 times in my whole life, and it's a kind of nagging issue for those who are close to me. They really want me to get this driver's license.
Well, I can as someone who doesn't drive, I can understand that. Yeah, I can relate to that. So, well, that song has a lot of humor in it. It's funny. It's that kind of that. It's funny, right? But there's a kind of a earnestness in it at the same time.
Well, there's definitely a darkness and depravity beneath the kind of because it's all kind of major chords. It's kind of like more buoyant surface of it. Because this guy, he's kind of, you're not really sure why he's circling the house of this person here, and there's also the fact that. The old man, the boyfriend, is busting down doors looking for this person, you know, and that was inspired by an individual I will leave unnamed on this show who was an ex-boyfriend of a friend of mine who was just kind of one of these dudes who would just show up and kind of just make everyone uncomfortable with this honestly. So and this guy actually weaseled his way into another song on that record, Chester, which is about a similar topic, which is about someone lingering around, kind of hanging around, keeping tabs.
Well, I don't want to misrepresent the songs. The songs are about that's actually. You're talking about somebody who's stalking a person or somebody who's kind of invading people's space, and so there certainly are serious issues in your songs that you address, but you're not afraid to put a little humor in there, so it's not all it's not all.
No one wants to be spoken to or lectured on. I believe that, and one thing that's missing from a lot of circumstances in American life today is a sense of humor, I believe, and when people in the times that they have in leisure or repose to listen to music, I think humor is real important, and just as a way to get through life, which has a lot of darkness to it.
Mm-hmm. You told me you were a big fan of the Modern Lovers and Jonathan Richman.
Oh yeah, that's something we should really talk about because it's one of the reasons I still live here. I think around Cambridge.
Oh, so you live there because of the song "Government Center"?
Oh yeah, I mean when I first heard that album, it changed my life. That album.
So when you hear an album like that, how old were you when you first heard "Government Center," for example, or heard what would you said that?
I was around 16 or 17 when I really listened to that album for the first time, and my father, he grew up where I'm calling from now in Watertown, and I'd go visit him, and it felt like I was kind of traveling back in time, just going to this old house, that he had bought in the 1980s, and just looking around the kind of the way Cambridge looked when I first saw it. It felt like it was kind of stuck in a different time in a way. Yeah. And, Jonathan Richman, he would, again, in the same way Van Morrison would write about Cypress Avenue, write about these places which no one had ever thought to commemorate within a song, like Route 128, the Government Center. I mean, these aren't places which, reek of romantic imagery there, but he was able to kind of twist them around and make people feel this sentiment for
I have to confess something immediately. You can talk about City Hall Plaza, right?
Oh, yeah.
Did you know that at the end of his life, the architect that designed City Hall Plaza, did you know that I would have coffee with him every day for like months on end?
I did not know that.
Yep. He was a German, I think German, oh God, I forget Kallman is his name. Kallman used to take his tea every day at Espresso Royale Coffee on Newbury Street. And I would have coffee there, and he would drink tea, and he and I would talk And I meet him there just to hear his stories about being an architect in the 60s and 70s. And I never told him what I thought of his building. Pro or con, I never, indulged in any anti-modernist talk or any anti-brutalist talk. I just listened to him speak because he was such a fascinating character.
You remember anything in particular he would tell you?
Well, he would talk a lot about Philip Johnson. I'll tell you one story he said. He said he had just built this thing, Government Center, and he really had a lot of anxiety because of the press, and there was a lot of, dislike of the building, I think. And he said, I think he said he was in England, and he said he ran into Philip Johnson, and Philip Johnson gave him the thumbs up, saying, your building's going to be a major building. You're on the right track, and it made him feel happy, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
there are a lot of structures, I think, especially from the 60s and 70s, which people regard as eyesores.
Yeah.
But
when I think about Government Center, I think about him because he was the architect that made it, and he had really, really long white hair. I think he was like 80 years old. He had hair down to his. It was
wow.
God. It was down to after his shoulder blades, and he'd wear like a tweed jacket, and he'd just talk. And so what I'm saying is that when you meet somebody like that, you have to give them their due and listen to what they have to say, even if you don't really agree with his buildings, because of his life experience, and because he was in the world of design, architecture, he knew a lot about many things. Very interesting person. He actually, funny, I don't know if this changes the subject. It reminds me of another Boston film, Freds of Eddie Coyle.
I was just going to mention that because there's a great scene where Peter Boyle.
Yep.
And I forget the actor's name, but the dude who plays the FBI agent, they're walking along the Government Center, and it's just such a great shot of that area.
Yep. Well, that's it's Peter Boyle and Jesus. Who is it?
Who's that guy, man? He's a great actor.
He was in everything. God, he was in everything, wasn't he?
Yeah. You know who that is, man? That's Jan Eggleston.
That's right.
And I haven't got the chance to see some of his films, but apparently he made these films also shot in the late 70s in Boston called like Billy in the Lowlands. And then he ended up working for WGBH for a while and made these kind of low-budget movies, and I've always wanted to see him.
It's not Stephen Keats, in other words, no.
No.
That's interesting, Jane.
But, I see a lot of films, and more often than not, I'll walk out of one, and it will kind of either directly inspire or find its way into a song of mine. I remember when I saw The American Friend at the Brattle for the first time, I think I went home that night or something and wrote the song Slight in the Gallery off Long Gone Carrier. And if you listen to that song, it's pretty much like some of the plot of The American Friends, put into a song.
We're talking, I guess, about the Wim Wenders film with Alan Garfield and...
Yeah. And it's a hard thing to
Dennis
explain
Hopper.
Why, like where songs come from. And I think any songwriter will tell you, you kind of just, you do with what you're given. You can work for months on something, or it will just kind of fall on out of the sky one day as you're walking to work or something.
So you're really, I guess you're kind of prolific because you write a lot. And do you think that part of the reason you're prolific is that you're open to this information, that you're not, you don't have, yeah.
I mean, what's that Faulkner quote about a good writer? There's observation, experience, and imagination, and you can't do without two of those things. I think he's right about that.
Huh. That's interesting.
Because it's like it could be, a songwriter will always tell you that they'll scribble down stuff in a bar or restaurant, something overheard from about someone. Someone may say, or you could be like Leonard Cohen and spend like 2 years writing a damn song. So there are so many different approaches, and that's one thing I've always liked about the medium is that if you make a movie, you need to get like hundreds of people to make it with you. You need all this financing, but if you're writing a song, it's a very immediate thing there. You can write it and take it the next day to the club and see what people think of it.
Yeah. Well, there is that immediacy of like taking it, like you said, taking it to the club, and I guess that's really useful if you just have a guitar and don't have like a large orchestra, with the string section and the wind section. You can just like And that's what.
And actually, that I think is a good way to talk about how I first started, because I remember it like it was yesterday, kind of where my mother thought it would be a good idea for me to pick up some kind of instrument, and they asked me what I wanted to play, and at the time. The piano just seemed to me something that you couldn't transport at all. It was like this, this big object.
Yeah, tell me about it. I'm a pianist. It's got, that's right.
But the guitar you could take around with you, and it kind of had occupied a place in the culture, which was, more like I could at 6 or 7 years old, however old I was, I could tell you the names of some rock and rollers I liked who played one. So that's probably why I picked it.
Well, what was the music you were listening to when you were first learning, I guess, the guitar? Are they the people we've been talking about? And I know you mentioned Leonard Cohen. What do you have to say on this episode about what Leonard Cohen's contribution to songwriting and singing or anything?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I just actually picked up a copy of his first record a few weeks ago. I'd known it for most of my life, but I sat down and listened to it, and it's just that first album is just so amazing, and
it is beautiful. It's really beautiful,
and a lot of it has to do with the arrangements. And the guy who arranged that album, I think his name was John Simon, and he also did that Marshall McLuhan record, The Medium.
I'll be darned, that's right.
Yeah,
the LP version of Medium.
And he did the first album by the band as well. Mm-hmm. And arrangements are real important. And I think we've spoken before that you're one of the few people I know who really doesn't like Neil Young, right? You don't, it's too much.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, what I would say about Neil Young, that's complicated. I would never say I dislike Neil Young. More accurately, I don't like his singing style. I don't like at all his singing voice. And so that goes a long way towards me not loving him. Right? Yeah. But if we're talking about him as an all-around musician and as a songwriter, he certainly.
I think he's an arranger.
Well, he certainly has my respect. I mean, he's just not one of my favorites. But yeah, what were you going to say? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, just like as an arranger, a lot of the accompaniment on his songs is pretty minimal, but it's just the right combination of instruments to really, get the song across. And I think if you're going to go into that singer-songwriter bag, I think arrangements are real important. And on the album that you played on, I just was pretty lucky to get these great musicians just to come by and do that. And your piano playing, I think, added a tremendous amount to that album.
Well, I did try to sort of arrange the material, but I never set out to do it in a contrived way or in a, I kind of tried to do what came naturally and just try to. My thing was just basically serving the music. Like when I play piano on anything, my whole point of that moment is to serve the music of the moment. That is if it's not my music, if it's somebody else's music.
Yeah.
So I was happy to do that, and I guess that's a kind of an arranging. I guess you could call that arranging, but I didn't see myself as redoing your music or rewriting your music. Just trying basically to serve what the material required or what the moment required.
Yeah, and that album it was done in a studio which is no longer existing over in Alston.
Wow.
Called Kissy Pig, and what a name there. But
what happened to that?
What is it?
What happened to that studio?
The building got demolished.
Oh my God.
I think they're building some sort of condominium or high rise or something there now.
There you go. See, there's the problem.
There's the problem.
Is this going to be the political portion of the show? Where we rail about capitalism and how that's it.
Yeah, I was just talking with our mutual friend Andre Deal about these issues last night, and I was standing at the bar with him and this other friend of mine who's one of those those lifelong punks who was saying that how much he kind of disliked people in that scene who claimed to be apolitical, because he said, the old song title there, which side are you on? You got to pick a side.
Well, I sort of, yes and no. I in part agree, in part disagree. I mean, of course, I don't think everything's political. But if you're talking about like tearing down a recording studio and putting up a luxury condo, that's politics. That's it. I mean, of course, ideally, what I would say about that is you got to have both a place to live and a recording studio. It's not either or. You need both.
Yeah.
So kind of I remember when I was involved in the left a long time ago. I'm not really political now, but when I was, some of the more anarchistic kind of people I would hang with used to have a friend of mine, John Clark. I don't know if that name. He said that usually the problem in politics is that people ask for too little. Like they think it's an either or thing. They think, well, you have to ask for A so you can't have B. And I think he was saying you have to ask for A and B. It's a both and. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's something you hear about all the time living around, an urban area nowadays in America is about things getting torn down.
Yeah.
It goes back to that take my soul to the junkyard thing.
Yep, that's like your song.
And that's something which bothers me and affects me, is that there are places, usually the places I like, that get torn down. It's never like the Apple Store. It's never like these places, they seem to have no problem staying there. So it's always the places that I tend to gravitate towards that get shut down, like that record store I worked at for years in your ear in the middle of Harvard Square. I mean, that was one of my favorite places, and it got Harvard decided to shut it down.
Yeah, you got to shut down the record store. So you're at a record store now, still, right?
Yeah, it's a store called Blue Bag.
Blue Bag Records in. Is that in Watertown?
It's in Cambridge. It's on Mass Ave. It's across from Frank's Steakhouse.
Frank's Steakhouse. Yeah. So, do you think that's going to be able to survive or make a go of it?
Oh yeah. I mean, luckily we're not owned by Harvard, so Harvard makes it clear a lot of the time what its priorities are. Unfortunately, their priorities have to do a lot with technology, frat clubs, and sports. It seems like.
Yeah.
Well, if you mess with those three things, you're going to be out of luck.
Well, it's weird. Record stores are, again, it's like that either or thing. It's like, well, we're going to put up a record store. But, what I always wonder about that is why can't you have a place that's multi-use? So why can't you have a place that part of it's record store and maybe part of it's record store, and the record store part, you put up some foam or some cushion so it isn't so loud, sort of soundproof it a little bit. And then maybe above that you have an apartment for some people, or maybe above that, why? It's just these very rigid bureaucratic ideas that you have to. This has to be a home. This has to be commercial. This has to be these rigid boundaries actually end up not helping anybody, because then you're at the mercy of the real estate industry only. Like the real estate industry decides everybody's life, and then they become the judge, jury, and executioner. So.
Yeah,
that's good.
I mean, I grew up in the middle of New York City, and I would always kind of just like to hang out in bookstores, places where you could be with other people, but also be very much by yourself too. And I think those places are real important, and you got to keep them open, and you got to support obsessiveness in any form. I think.
Absolutely.
I happen to be lucky where I still live now, because, as there's just great movie houses here too, where people can get exposed to things that are pretty rare when you look at most of America. What's around.
Well, but Boston is very rare because Boston has a thriving repertory scene for movies. And so what's on a given night, so if people don't know, on a given night in the Boston area, what are some of the movies that could be playing at the same time? So you could in one night you could see Friends of Eddie Coyle, you can see The Exorcist.
Yeah,
And you could see Parasite and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
exactly.
and I don't know, a 1960s Rock Hudson Doris Day picture.
Yeah,
that lineup in one night. Am I right? Like on one day. It isn't like it's one's on one day.
I mean, that's a good night, but I remember I don't think I've ever seen anyone like you when you lived here going to the movies. I mean, it was like you had this like fever or something. You went from like the Brattle up to Coolidge Corner to go see a midnight screening.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Well, it depends on what they're playing. So if I'm in Cambridge and I have to get over to Brookline at midnight, I might do that if they're showing Cruising by William Friedkin.
I think we saw that.
Or if they're showing a Renoir film that's never been like a month in the country or something. You know, I'm going to go see that. Depends on what they're showing. I don't think I'll make the trip for The Matrix, but I will. But I will make the trip for Ghost World. Depends on the movie they're showing.
So I remember you telling me that was one of your father's favorite movies.
Which movie?
Ghost World.
He really loved Ghost World. I don't know why. I really don't.
You think maybe it was that art teacher character in there?
It could be. It really could be. I think that maybe my dad's sense of humor. See, my dad had a very particular kind of sense of humor. And his sense of humor is very much like R. Crumb's sense of humor.
Wow.
So there is a deep connection there because my dad sort of, even though he wasn't himself as a person much like Robert Crumb, he kind of, the things that made him laugh and the way he looked at the world was I say, very anti-establishment, kind of very...
Yeah.
There's a kind of almost an anarchistic spirit that my dad had. And so I'm sure that would appeal to him.
I mean, and Ghost World, in that film, it's like you see this America that's constant, and R. Crumb's consistent with his vision of that's constantly getting changed and everything kind of sold out for $1. I mean, have you ever seen that R. Crumb poster where it's a brief history of the United States?
Yeah.
And it's in the documentary where at first there's this corner in a pastoral landscape, and then the horses come in and they put the phone lines up, and then all of a sudden there are Cadillacs coming down the street, and it's just there seems to be this kind of disregard for just the way public space is used in this country a lot of the time, and almost this kind of desire to make it seem as ugly as you can make it.
Well, it's true. I mean, of course, Robert Crumb's in the Crumb movie by Terry Zwigoff, same director as Ghost World, I think. Crumb says we gone from the horse and buggy to 49er t-shirts and sweatshirts.
Oh yeah.
Talks about the basketball, football teams that people wear on there.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a problem, man. Where I mean, it's just. But
I'm a bit of a hypocrite, of course, because some of my favorite movies are sports themed.
Oh yeah, me too. I mean,
I love, and I actually watch Friday Night Lights, and I'm really caught up in the characters on that TV show.
Yeah, well, that's a different thing because when you're talking about, I mean, you've had athletes on this show before, right?
Yep,
about
absolutely.
Like when you're talking about what it takes to be an athlete and to be and the kind of focus, the kind of rigor that requires. That's a separate issue than kind of the culture surrounding that,
Yeah. You mean the hype aspect of it, kind of the.
Yeah, and there's and the fact is that there's a lot of passion and a lot that goes around some sports game. I don't know if you saw that film that came out last year. It got a lot of praise. I think it was called the Seventh Day or something about this delivery worker in New York, this Mexican guy who has a soccer game, and it's called En El Séptimo Día. It's by that Irish filmmaker who was great, but about this guy who just can't get off work and he really wants to play this soccer game, this championship game, and everything sort of conspires against him. It's like it may not be the stuff I'm personally into, but there's a reason why sports films can be be real great.
Absolutely. Well, I sort of think, so are there any other songs that you want to do or talk about anything that comes to your mind or?
Yeah. I'm always interested in doing new material.
Uh-huh.
And there's a song I wrote recently that I'm particularly proud of because this past year I've probably been listening to more country music than I have in my whole life.
Oh, okay.
And one thing I love about those country songs is just the directness to it and the ability to tell a straightforward story, which is something that I'm, hope to do more of in my songwriting. It's a tough thing to do because some people are just gifted at telling a straightforward story, and I guess in my songs all the time I take more kind of weird turns or corners than other people do. But this song was written about a friend of mine who I feel like someone I kind of had a romantic thing with, and if it had turned different, my life would be different nowadays.
Oh,
and
wow.
sometimes it's drawing on a late hour of the evening and you want to give the person a phone call, but you decide against it, and the song's about that.
Everybody needs an anchor in life. You, me, just everybody. Anchor made this whole show possible. I'm immensely grateful to them. You too can use Anchor to make your own shows and create your own vision. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Thank you.
It's called You Probably Don't Give a Damn, But I Had to Let You Know.
That's great.
Baby, I've been true, and I'm in a pack of lies. I've been the green grass at home and the smog in an LA sky. But I've been sorry that I ever let you go. Yeah, you probably don't give a damn, but I had to let you know. I've been a rowdy old pool hall and a quiet little country church. I went looking for the treasure of Sierra Madre, then I gave up the search. Baby, you're just like a candle, I like to see you glow. Yeah, you probably don't give a damn, but I had to let you know. I'm gonna rent me a big billboard on the side of the highway. I'm gonna proclaim your virtues and charms on it. Maybe it'll send you back my way. Well, I was pretty lousy, but I could have been the best. Once I was footloose and fancy free, but now I'm under arrest. Well, the warden in cell block 9, he runs this crazy show. Yeah, you probably don't give a damn, but I had to let you know. Yeah, you probably don't give a damn, but I had to let you know.
Tyler, that's a beautiful story and song.
Yeah.
Is that on the new album? Is it coming out? Or?
That's going to hopefully be on the album that I've yet to record.
Okay, so it's not. So that's really brand new. It's not on the Gala.
The last few months I wrote that one.
Excellent.
And if you listen closely, that whole song's built on these juxtapositions of images there, and that's something was inspired by that Leonard Cohen song where I forget the name of it, but it's pretty much all these contrasts and juxtapositions.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, the character in that song, he could be calling from a phone in some jail or something. Right. And I like that kind of that ending I put to it.
Yeah, that's again another really strong lyric.
Yeah, but you know, it's like I'll work on words a lot. I'll always be writing lyrics, but sometimes things don't stick, and you've got to have the rhythm, and they've got to complement each other, because you know, something that might work as prose or a poem won't stand a chance unless it has you know, something to counterpoint against it in the song. Something that, yeah.
And so in that song, would that be the kind of the country and western rhythm you have going, or
yeah, and that's again what I like about a lot of country songs is they have these kind of progressions that are just universal, but it's amazing what people put up against those. You know, there's something about the simplicity, directness of a Hank Williams song or a Chris Christopherson tune where they'll just pull you in completely, and it could just be from a C to a G chord, but you know there's a strength in that simplicity to it.
It's true.
Yeah, when I saw Christopherson play, it was in the Wilbur Theater, and there were all these women catcalling him from the crowd and in between the songs, because he was a big sex symbol, you know, as you know.
Yeah.
And he had before people were talking about Lady Gaga in This Star Is Born, they were talking about Christopherson and Streisand in the 70s one. Yeah. But anyway, the way his voice the way his voice sounded in that theater was you know, he's getting up there, and it was real ragged, but you could kind of just hear these amazing contours and textures in this voice, which is by no means a kind of Pavarotti type thing, but it affects me, and that's, you know.
Well, it's funny. It reminds me of when I saw McCoy Tyner last year, a year and a half ago. He had to be helped up on stage, like, you know, by someone to help him to get up on the stage in New York. And he didn't have the facility he used to have, and he couldn't play or didn't play the things that he had made his mark on musically in terms of technique and facility. So that's kind of a loss of that of vocabulary and things. And yet he was with Gary Bartz, and he started playing these Ellington tunes. And it was all there, like the spirit was there. And he sounded literally, so he didn't sound like McCoy Tyner, but he actually ended up sounding like Count Basie in the perfection of the swing. It was just so beautiful. Yeah, I was really moved by that, and it goes to show that it's he was still McCoy Tyner, still there. It was with the music.
Yeah, I mean, to bring up Ellington, that leads me to something I want to talk about, which is something Ellington did throughout his whole career, which is composing things for certain musicians in his band. Yep. And I'm lucky right now to be playing with some really great musicians. Actually, the first time I met the drummer, it was Tim. I was with you. I don't know if you remember that day, but no. We ran into this kind of this hippie chick, Madeline, who I know in Inman Square, and we were talking about how we needed to find a drummer, and she led us around the corner to this kind of Harmony Korine type setting of like a skate ramp or something, and there was Tim, and he was sitting there, and he said, "Sure, I'll play drums for you," and that really changed the course of the music, because he's primarily a jazz drummer, and you don't have to tell Tim much, and he just has a great way of feeling out a song. And he's always got a big fat grin on his face when he's playing it, because there's nothing he loves to do more. And he brought his friends and former Berkeley classmates into the mix. Ian Ayers, who plays bass on Outskirts of the Gala, and now their other bandmate Bennett, who's been playing second guitar to me in a lot of the live stuff we've been doing. And those guys, they're just I love playing with them so much. And
the album, I've listened to the album several times, and it's very tight. Like, there are tight arrangements. You talked a lot about arranging. You certainly got arranging going on this album.
Yeah, on that album, on several songs, there's this friend of mine who I met, this woman Chelsea, who for weeks, for months, we would meet up, and she would play cello along with these songs, and gradually these arrangements started to surface, and I love the cello, love the way it sounds. I was really insistent on trying to get that recorded on the record.
So you got together your own band, and everybody's bringing something unique to it.
Yeah, I remember when I was in college at this school I went to, Simon's Rock, where I met a lot of friends of mine who I still speak to this day. I had this music professor there. I took some classes with a guy named Larry Wallach, who you'd actually like him because he went to Columbia in the late '60s, early '70s, and he was involved with the first synthesizers and stuff like that. And he had a big kind of afro, this dude, back then at least. But he was a real serious classical guy, and he played the harpsichord. He had a separate room in his house where he kept all the harpsichords. Wow. And he was concerned for me that I would have difficulty as a musician, making arrangements for other musicians to play. And I found it kind of odd that I've been so lucky in kind of just finding people who can, look at the material I'm bringing them and can come up with their kind of own thing, or like there are a lot of different ways to communicate the kind of music you want to be played, and some of my means of doing that may be more on the unconventional side, but I read kind of about how someone like Joni Mitchell would arrange some of her more adventurous work of the 70s, and it was unorthodox, but in the process of doing that, she got a really unique sound. And of course, if I was doing orchestrations or arrangement, you would want someone like Randy Newman, who has experience in transcribing that kind of stuff. But in regards to a smaller unit of players, I think there's a lot more freedom in that a lot of the time, and something more akin to what jazz players do, of just kind of improvising and finding out what works.
Well, there's a lot of places we could take this conversation, because you mentioned Simon's Rock, and you mentioned Joni Mitchell in the same paragraph there. What do you want people that don't know? Do you want to say about Simon's Rock? It's an unusual.
Well,
school.
I had a kind of real rough period in my teenage years, from the ages of 12 to 16 years old, because I kind of had a bad divorce in my family, where my mom and dad split up, and it was pretty much as bad a divorce as you can have. I mean, that movie Marriage Story is like a walk in the park compared to what I had to kind of witness between my parents. And because of that, it kind of affected the way I was performing in school during that time period. And I would just play a lot of hooky. I would not want to go, and I'd spend most of my time hanging out, just in various establishments around Midtown Manhattan. And because of that, I ended up kind of falling into a different place in my high school career there. And by the time I was a sophomore, this kind of school came to my attention, called Simon's Rock, which was an early college out in Western Massachusetts. And I ended up going there when I was 16, and it did change my life. It was the first time I really met people my own age who were whip smart and interested in doing the kind of things I was doing, like music and all that kind of stuff.
That's beautiful. So you're saying Simon's Rock kind of had something to do with you doing the songs you're doing today a little bit, or something?
Simon's Rock to me was a place where I, like I said, for the first time met just people who I really got along with, and through that my music changed, but also I didn't make a lot of music that I still play to this day at Simon's Rock, because I was only, I was 17, and I wouldn't really want to listen to the music of anyone who's remained exactly the same to the stuff they were doing at that age. But I definitely played around a lot with people there, and met some people I continue to do stuff with. But a lot of the stuff I encountered at Simon's Rock was more in regards to kind of politics and reading that kind of stuff, because that was what everyone seemed to be, talking about and interested in at the school there. And, it was.
What years would that have been? That would have been, any period of time.
That would be, I got there around 2009.
Oh, wow.
So in a way that was a very different time than, 10 years later.
Oh, boy.
In ways that you wouldn't notice that when you were there. But
well, one of the things I'm having conversations with people about stuff, I'm always adamant I'm pretty dogmatic. I always tell people that if you mention 2009 or 2010, and then you mention 2020, you might as well be talking about 1950 to 1999. In other words, I say that the distance traveled, like those are two different worlds, even though it's just a few years, right? I don't know if you agree with me on that. Like, it's kind of like, that's a different era.
I mean, one thing I really liked about Simon's Rock is that it attracted an unconventional kind of person, for better or for worse, like people you don't often meet, these kind of real characters. And Andre Deal, who was very emblematic of that way of thinking, where people would say things that would often be outlandish, sometimes mean, sometimes sardonic, but they were real kind of individuals, which is one thing I really liked about the school. And I'll tell you one thing is that I've been hanging around the colleges around Boston for years, and you kind of don't meet many people who have that strong sense of individual self. It's more of I knew I would go spend 4 years here, and I'm gonna study this thing that will get me a job later. And it's very, it's cut out a certain way. And a lot of kids at Simon's Rock, they were just doing what their interest or their passion was, which is pretty unique for college nowadays, I think.
Well, it reminds me of that piece that, did you see the piece about Bennington College that,
No.
Yeah, there's a long piece in Vanity Fair, I think by Bret Easton Ellis, I think. Either Bret Easton Ellis or Jay McInerney, I forget which author. And they did this huge, collage essay with photos about Bennington back in the 80s, and I think, it's beautiful because you see all these photographs and all this.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. So in a way, that's is a similar cultural milieu maybe to Simon. Well, who are some notable graduates from Simon's Rock? Like, if you had to pick.
Well, to me, the only graduates from there which really matter are the Coen brothers, and they were there for a couple of years. And the first moment I got there, it was rumored that there's this bowling alley outside the town called the Cove, which does look very similar to the bowling alley in The Big Lebowski.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I like to think that kind of seeped in there. And they're just kind of things that, they've continued to write about. Like, there are many characters in the movie, like Inside Llewyn Davis, which definitely be the kind of people you'd run into in a town like Great Barrington, where Simon's Rock was located, or just this kind of character.
Yep.
Also, to in a completely different area of public life, Ronan Farrow graduated from there. I think he went there when he was absurdly young back in the 90s.
Well, that would make sense. I mean, those are three people, two of them brothers, who are totally kind of in a way unique. They forged their own path, And they do things in a unique way. Like Ronan Farrell is kind of a unique reporter, almost like kind of a trailblazing reporter. And the Coen brothers are trailblazing in film. So that's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah. And you're doing your own kind of songs that are unique. So maybe there's something to that. I don't know, but
maybe there is. Yeah. I mean, someone like the Coen brothers, the kind of movies they make are. I want to write songs in the way they make films, or the way someone like even Tarantino does this thing where it's kind of there are images which is kind of could be from the 50s, the 40s, they could be from the 90s, and a sensibility which kind of travels, throughout decades and is eclectic. The Coen brothers, they're unique because you feel like you can get interest of their interest in philosophy, interest in literature, the kind of choices they make as filmmakers. It's not just this monochromatic thing. It's taken from all aspects of life in America, and they're certainly pretty damn American in their sensibility, I think.
So you said American. So what makes a work of art American? Do you think it's that kind of interdisciplinary? Kind of that it's always already interdisciplinary, right? It's always already.
It's something that's
it's always already American art is always motley, and always diverse, right from the get go. Yeah, diversity is built in the DNA from the beginning, right? Kind of, I think.
Yeah. Yep. I mean. There's a lot you could say about that, but Did you see the country documentary on PBS?
I did watch that. Yeah, I did watch that.
I mean, there's a lot of things that people have issues the way Ken Burns makes his documentaries, but one thing I liked in the beginning is that he did testify just to the fermentation in the early 20th century of country music. It was a real hodgepodge of just so many different cultures, so many immigrant cultures, making this amalgamation of music, which was completely unique, and that couldn't have happened anywhere else but here.
And it also couldn't happen if we were not a nation predicated on immigration, right?
Yeah,
that's actually the origin of our country. Interestingly enough, and so there's that. I mean, in terms of Ken Burns movies, I actually love a lot. I like some more than others. I really love this Vietnam documentary. I thought that was really interesting. And I actually only in part like his jazz documentary. There's things I dislike about it, there's things I like about it. But I mean, the fact that he actually made that thing, and he actually dared to make a film about jazz and kind of a lot of heart. I give him a lot of credit for that. I can't really comment on his country movie because I'm not really an expert on country, so I don't really know how whether country people like it or not. Maybe they like but I certainly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things that you can pick up on in the early country music, which and I think someone like Lou Reed from the Velvet Underground would tell you that was in the stuff that they got credited as being very innovative for, were kind of present in this blues and country stuff made in the 20s and 30s of a certain kind of drone, which you'd get from just the way the instruments were crafted. A lot of people made their instruments in ways that were far from professional, but you get this unique sound that would 40 years later be called punk or avant-garde or whatever, right. And it's just interesting how how certain sounds get resurfaced and repurposed.
Well, that gets back to the full circle back to our very big start of our conversation. You talked about repurposing and recycling. So you mentioned Lou Reed. Lou Reed's an influence. The Velvet Underground was kind of remarkable chamber music rock band, right? I guess. I think.
Yeah. I mean,
totally unique. Totally. Anything you want to say about what they inspired you by the Velvet Underground, or?
Well, for one thing, as I mentioned earlier, I grew up a New Yorker, and so much of that music is music that comes out of a life lived in New York, of just street life, the kind of commingling of high culture and more lowbrow stuff, which and that's one thing I've always loved Lou Reed for, of just this this very certain way of doing things and delivering his songs. I mean, "Walk on the Wild Side." Well, it's a perfect song.
It's beautiful. Well, would you agree with me that it's all one culture? I mean, high, low, who gives a crap? High, low.
It's
true.
Low,
it's all one culture.
And so it's one thing that I think you and I come together on is there are certain people who only go to certain things. Be like people who only go to operas.
Oh God.
People who only go to see jazz.
Yeah.
And that something that frustrates me, because it's at that point that you have something that's close to being looked down upon. Of you have people who get put in boxes, and it's frustrating. And I think and openness and eclecticism in the arts is very important. And just think about the people who made up the Velvet Underground. You have a guy from Long Island who studied under Delmore Schwartz at Syracuse University. You have a dude who's Welsh who studied partly under Stravinsky at Tanglewood, who played the viola, and a drummer whose percussion setup was far from conventional, who stood up when playing the drums. That's something that's it's something that I personally aspire to, and having things that could never be contrived in the makeup of a band, but somehow end up coming together.
Absolutely. Well, you're certainly continuing in that spirit, I feel, with your gala album, which is on Bandcamp, right?
Yeah, and we met Dan Sunshine earlier.
Yes, Dan Sunshine
in an interview here, and he's been a real good pal to me over the last few years, and he's a photographer, and we were talking about what we kind of wanted for the cover, and there's this area around Lesley University near the Divinity School that I bike down probably or past every day, and we went out there around 7 or 8 in the morning and shot that cover when no one was around.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's a great cover. I guess that's how you have to do things. You have to do it at a certain time, and you gotta.
Yeah, and I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, Mitch, but our friend John Quackenbush at the Harvard Film Archive, I've come to him with the suggestion of shooting a music video for Tyler the Names, and he's agreed to film it.
Oh wow!
So at some point in the future, we will be putting up a video.
How's John doing?
John's doing well.
Yeah.
He's the man in the projection booth.
We're talking about John Quackenbush, who's a master projectionist.
Yes.
That's art of projecting film is still a thing.
It is.
It's still a thing.
It is, but before you split Cambridge, John showed us that movie, in the Harvard Film Archive.
Yeah, I mean, my last day in Boston, we watched Bloomin' Love by Paul Mazursky.
Yeah. And it was just you and I in that.
Just you and I. It was with Marsha Mason and Susan Onspach and a whole bunch of other people in that film, I'm sure of it.
Yeah. Also, I want to mention, bring up Mazursky.
Yeah.
To me, which is a classic example of American art, is Harry and Tonto.
Yep.
I mean, just like. And what makes that movie great is just the people he meets along the way on the journey there.
Yeah.
And there's a kind of just this absurdism, this real heartfelt directness to that movie, and it's such a big country. I think about all the places he sees in that film, like the desert, the canyons, Chicago, Los Angeles, New York.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's a good film about America, and actually, the spirit of Harry Tonto is very much on our podcast here, very much so. And I feel that your show is in keeping with the spirit of Journey of an Aesthete, as is your music. And I really thank you for coming on the show and talking about all this stuff. We could probably do another 2 or 4 hours. I hate saying goodbye, but I always say goodbye eventually. And is there anything, Tyler, you want to say before we sign off, or anything that comes into your between your two ears, and anything that you want to tell the listener before we go? Or?
Gee, I would just like to add that I've one of the more formative experiences of the last 6 years was just hanging out with you around Boston, and just being able to sort of go check out everything from films to music around town, and it's important to just like get out and expose yourself to things you wouldn't ordinarily consider, I think, but to also realize what it is you feel passionately about, and the kind of stories you want to tell. And there are people who have all sorts of notions about what's important in regards to things that need to be talked about, but that's really something I think you can only find out for yourself.
Yeah, you have to figure it out for yourself and kind of pursue it with commitment and passion. And that's what I try to do with this podcast. And that's what, so thank you. And hopefully we'll cross paths again and even do Orange Van or anything you want to do. So thank you, Tyler Bejoian, and tell people what the album is that they should get. And
I have 2 full-length LPs up on Bandcamp, and the first one is Long Gone Carrier, and the second one is Outskirts of the Gala. And there's also a brief EP on there, which was recorded at the Outpost, a number of years ago, with just Mitch and I playing together, which is an interesting snapshot of just that gig and that kind of thing there. But Outskirts of the Gala is the most recent album.
Yeah, get Outskirts of the Gala and support Tyler in the Names is the band. And
we're also playing a show at Tavern at the End of the World over in Somerville on the day after my birthday, on March 20th, with Margaret Garrett of the band Mr. Airplane Man.
Yeah, tell people who don't know, Mr. Airplane Man is really brilliant, right? Margaret. So tell people about her and what she's about and what she's been doing.
Well,
before we go.
Margaret and her friend Tara started the band, I think almost 20 years ago or something, right? And they would play out in Harvard Square, and it was this kind of harkening back to an electric blues sound. Like the title of the band comes from this Howlin' Wolf song, and unfortunately, I think Tara was taken ill over the past few years, so they've had to discontinue playing together, unfortunately. But Margaret is still performing regularly, and she has this new project, which I'm excited to hear. It's called Stone and Star, which is actually taken from her favorite poem by Rilke, which I think is pretty cool.
That's fantastic to have a rock band and have it be named from a poem by Rilke. Stone and Star, formerly Mr. Airplane Man. Tyler in the Names is the current guest band. Go see them. Tyler Bejoian, it's been a real treat to have you on this show, and I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And thanks for being on.
Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you, Tyler.